Next up, we have another comedian, Mora Fields. She was voted least likely to be a comedian in high school. And this will be her final comedy performance. Ever, so really laugh a lot.
Hello. So, hello, good evening. I'm Mora Fields. Well, not really, but we'll get to that later. There's been some kind of mistake, that I'm here tonight. I think somebody canceled because I got this frantic call from Christina at Forest Web. She says, just get up there, talk about anything, it'll be fine. Okay, but I have to tell you that I'm not actually a very humorous kind of person, and you can ask my husband about that. My experience is more along the lines of despair, existential angst, deep suffering, and you can ask my husband about that. And the philosopher Kierkegaard said, the more one suffers, the more one has a sense for the comic. But in my case, he was wrong. It's more like the more I suffer, the more my husband suffers. And, there's a lot to be depressed about right now. I'm not even going to mention the Donald. But, we got climate change, for example, and that's pretty scary, unless you live in Siberia and you're enjoying the suddenly balmy weather there in Krasnoyarsk. And then we have the exorbitant new marijuana tax here in Oregon, which is causing major suffering right here in Cottage Grove. And there's Britney Spears' ongoing mental health issues, which have many of us very concerned. And then, of course, there's a big election coming up. And I think the problem there is that somebody's going to win. But one thing I'm not depressed about, I don't suffer over this, is daylight savings time. And I'm really sick and tired of hearing people bitch and moan about losing a whole hour out of their life. Never mind they get it back in 6 months. They miss appointments, they're late to work, they have to get up so early. I mean, come on, people, get a grip. I've got chickens at my place, and they used to go in every day at 6 p.m. And then when daylight savings came, they just figured, hey, it's daylight savings time now, we're going an hour early. And they started going in at 5. No big deal. And they get up an hour earlier, too. My husband didn't get that either. So, mainly when I get up here, I talk about my spiritual philosophy, which has as a premise that you, as an individual entity, do not exist, and neither do I. And we're all just one consciousness, and there's no such thing as a separate personal self. And if there's no self, well, there's just no problem, because there's no self-centeredness, self-righteousness, self-deception, and there's no self-confidence or self-esteem either. And there's not even any self-flagellation, although you can still flagellate somebody else if that's what you're into. And I've done a lot of spiritual practices on my path. For example, the practice of celibacy. Now, I think that's a very important spiritual practice. I started young, practically at birth, and I practiced consistently for years, up into my teens. But by then, I was so good at it, I didn't have to practice anymore. And, I know it's not for everyone, but, a lot of people agonize over whether they should take up the practice of celibacy or not. But really, you either have the gene or you don't. It's an inherited thing. So even though I've provided some sound, rational arguments over the years, some of you still think that this we are all one stuff, my whole spiritual path, isn't logical, maybe pathological, and maybe I am deluded, but if I'm deluded, you're deluded too, because there's only one of us to be deluded. But there's so much suffering out there, and I get these petitions in my email, and they're from groups like Earth Justice, Change.org, the ACLU, and they're about things like police brutality, environmental destruction, cruelty to animals. It's just awful stuff, and I try to help, even if it's only by signing petitions. But after you've seen 1,000 of these petitions about the horrific things going on, you're just not shocked anymore. We get numb. I got numb. So a cop kills another 10-year-old black kid, big deal. Or we poison another water supply in some low-income area, too bad. Or maybe we're bombing villages in Syria or Libya or Afghanistan. Just the usual, no big deal. And it's what happens to kids when they grow up with violent video games and internet porn. Just guns, bombs, sadistic sex. And I know because it happened to me. Well, unfortunately, not the sex part. And here are some of the subject lines from some of these petitions I've gotten lately. My son's medication costs $286,000 a year. Petting zoo animals skinned for their fur. Stop the beheadings and crucifixions. That's in Afghanistan, I think. Or maybe Texas. But we get totally desensitized when we're bombarded with these all the time. So after a while, when I see I'm dying from ALS and I need your help in my inbox, I just hit delete. Or orangutans buried alive for palm oil, delete. But I will say that this one petition from Earth Justice the other day did get my attention. So California wildlife takes a hit from marijuana. Well, what? So I read that one. And apparently rodents in California are dying from the pesticides sprayed on illegal pot plantations. And that's pretty bad news for a lot of reasons. But hello, maybe rats shouldn't be smoking that stuff. There is going to be a mass rodent migration as soon as they figure out it's legal here. In fact, I think it's already starting. But there's so much suffering out there, and what can we do? I think we all want to help. We all have a modicum of altruism. And what is a modicum, anyway? It sounded good, but what is it? I think it's some kind of a measurement. Like, I'll have a modicum of tequila, please. And tonight, I think I'm going to have a double modicum of tequila. But one answer to this suffering problem could be compassion. But when we get numb, we keep hitting the delete key, and that starts to dry up, then the world is in pretty bad shape. So the Buddhists have a compassion practice called Tonglen, also called sending and taking. And in this practice, when you see or hear about somebody who's suffering, you take on that suffering yourself. And the way you do this is you imagine their pain, and then you try to experience what they must be feeling. And you breathe that in, like black smoke. And on the exhalation, you send out feelings of well-being and happiness for that person. And it's a very useful practice. And we could do that practice, for Britney Spears, for example. She has a lot of pain, I think. Actually, let's see, how did that go? Oh yeah, she has a lot of pain, and why else would she find herself many times over in drug rehab and psych wards? And in fact, just a while back, she ended up in a police standoff using her own 2 children as hostages. This is true. So I think she's got some problems. And I had to look her up because I didn't really know much about Britney. I thought she was this teen idol that was totally out of the picture now. But I found out that just 3 years ago, she was the top paid female musician. And I use that word musician loosely. She earned $58 million. I mean, that's twice as much as any of the rest of us make. And I also found out that she is still a teen pop idol. Just last year, she won the coveted Teen Choice Award. She did, and she's 35 years old. So I think she might have some identity issues, some maturity issues, She's not a happy person, so we could do Tonglen for Britney. But at the very least, if we did Tonglen for Britney, it would leave you feeling better, because Tonglen works for both the sender and the recipient. Unless, of course, you were to take on her suffering and then suddenly find yourself strutting around in a sequin corset and talking in baby talk with a lot of heavy panting thrown in. Because that is one of the dangers of Tonglen, is if you take on somebody's suffering, but you forget the other part about sending out the well-being, you could get stuck with it. And if you completely forgot to exhale, you'd have even bigger problems. Okay. But Tonglen does work for the sender as well as the recipient. And that's because, as I keep saying, there is only one of us, not 7 billion, just one. And so what do you know about anybody else's suffering? Only your own experience of it. And what can you know about anybody else's happiness either? Only your own perception and your own awareness of it. And is there actually anything outside of your awareness? Is that even possible? So, oh yeah. So you might think that only a complete fool would try to help the world with Tonglen, but the Buddhists have been doing this practice for over 1,000 years. And the Dalai Lama, he's a pretty smart guy. He might clown around sometimes, but he's no fool. And I really shouldn't use that word fool because it's another one of those politically incorrect terms. Court jesters all around the world have objected to the cultural appropriation of that word. So we don't say foolish anymore, we say clue deficient. And did you know that we don't use the word woman anymore in this country? Because there's such a big minority group. We now say vagino-American. And I just found out we can't even use the word dead to talk about our departed friends. Apparently, they were very offended by this. I don't know if they got a petition going or what, but we don't say dead anymore. We say living impaired. Whoops. It's okay, I already finished that one. And I think the only way we can buck the system here, and by that I mean the political system, the socioeconomic system, the Dewey Decimal System, Windows 10, is to stay alert and alive and not go numb. Don't hit the delete key, please. Don't unsubscribe. You know, compassion, let's send out modicums of compassion everywhere. You know, send some to Britney Spears, send some to Cliven Bundy, you know, that wacko up there in Malheur Bird Refuge. God knows he needs it. Send some to Ted Cruz. Let's not be stingy. But Forrest Webb, they got a lot of compassion already. So give them a little money tonight if you can. And drink a modicum of beer, order some food, because they get a little percentage from the register tonight, and everything helps. And thank you very much for listening to the final rant of my comedy career. Final. I appreciate it. You've been a very compassionate audience. Thank you.